part, it's you gotta stretch your tongue and yeah, gotta warm up. Okay,
so
go
now
I
ahead.
think Joanne was already
Yeah,
recording.
I was.
She was already recording that. Yeah, great.
We were all.
That is blackmail material for future reference.
So
I'm gonna post it to
welcome
my
to
own
our-
YouTube channel.
Welcome to our community lunch. We are once again actually enjoying hanging out with each other, and Aaron is actually today. So we encourage you to come and eat with us and share your thoughts. And so periodically I may reach out and point to one of you guys and ask you a question if I think you've got something, or if I see your hand up or whatever. But this is a continuation, a series of conversations about ideating and building something from idea into a tangible, usable project. And so, Aaron, will you let us know where we're at today and what we're going to be doing?
Yeah, sure thing, JJ. So in our last conversation, you know, we were talking about this idea that currently still doesn't have a name. The working name for the thing that we're talking about is called Tribes, and at some point we'll jam out on a naming session, come up with a name for the thing. But the gist of it is, it's an app that lets people, well, it empowers people to play role-playing games in real life. I like the phrase touch grass. That was one that JJ mentioned, although JJ's kind of out of focus now, leaning back a little too far in his chair there. There he is. You know, basically, we know role-playing is an activity that people enjoy. JJ talked about his fondness for it in his youth and in his current adulthood. I don't actually have as much experience with it. But you know, actually my girlfriend plays role-playing games, tabletop games with a group of friends. And so I see the merit of this thing. But you know, at its heart, what the experience that this app depends on is one where the players wear jerseys out in public that identify themselves as people who play role-playing games this way. And those jerseys incorporate a QR code that allows the players who maybe haven't played before or are already players in the game to snap that QR code and thereby engage those other players in either an adversarial or in a party mode, right? They're either somebody that they want to duel or they're somebody that they want to go on a campaign with. And so our last conversation sort of took that apart. It divided the experience up into a couple of different segments of connecting and onboarding the player and designing their character for the game and equipping that character. And JJ and I have had several conversations in the interim, back and forth, text messaging. We've talked with Caius, another member of our community, and JJ's son. And I think we're at the point now where what we want to do is flesh out this onboarding experience a little bit more in terms of user interface and in terms of where they ultimately end up, you know, in onboarding. And so what I've done here, I've got this mural board that I used to capture our last conversation, and on it I've got a couple of different of these little mobile screens. Basically, I'm reading this message that says add mural prototyping, and I hope that they haven't actually taken the feature away from us that I was planning to use today, because I don't have a pro account. What a bummer. So while I sign up for a pro account, JJ, why don't you sync up here a little bit? Did I give a good snapshot of where we are? And do you have any new thoughts that you want to share before we get started?
Yeah. So what's lovely about this is that it's really it engages human beings in relationships. And so while there's a role play happening, there's also a secondary conversation that's happening between the two people in public as they're saying, "Hi, I'm really Joe. I'm not Moon Knight," you know? Or maybe they're at Moon Knight and they're like, "Hey, you know, do you LARP? Well, I've got a LARPing group. Would you like to join me and play?" Right? So we're really talking about ways of engaging people naturally in play, um, and
Hey,
engaging them
nobody
in.
steal his credit card information, please. We're gonna have to blur this out on the video. All right. Sorry.
Thank you for that. Well, um, yes. So nobody. And so this is Aaron's number, by the way. He's got really a high limit on the card. You're on mute, Aaron. I see you laughing with me.
I'm gonna put my address on here too. Real exposure.
You know, when I first came up with the idea, it was really for Wizards of the Coast. Um, you know, I mean, I was thinking, how does that organization re-engage with its community? And you know, I think that there's another thing, and there's another aspect of it that I want you to think about, and that's the sports shirt. That the shirt is made to look like a sports jersey, but instead of saying, you know, the Gators, right? It says barbarians, right? And maybe across the back it's got your name, and where it would normally have sports patches of some kind or some, you know, regalia, it's got, instead of a basketball, it's got a, you know, a Celtic ruin, and maybe from a distance you can't tell the difference, but as you get closer, you're like, that's not a sports jersey. That, what is that? And in place of the number in the front is that big QR code. Um, and so, so there's also a status element to this experience, right? That we're creating a place that is honored and loved. And we're also taking the status of sports teams and we're relating it to things that would be a little bit more nerdy or geeky, and giving that to our community. Um, so, so Aaron, it's not working, huh? So
No,
we're gonna
we're gonna use it as is. And I think thanks for sort of filling in the gaps there, JJ. I want to share too with everybody that one of the things I did after we made our last recording was I shared it with a friend of mine who is a dungeon master locally. He's the one who DMs a lot of the games that Addie plays. And he was the one who introduced the word LARPing, which I had never heard of, right? Live action role playing. And he got super excited about, which tells me that there was enough substance in our last conversation to really open it up. He got really excited, wants to know more about, you know, where we go from here. So let's sort of kick it off and stay true to that. So backing up into the beginning of the experience, right? So what we ought to do, JJ, is we ought to put a context around this. And you and I kicked around a couple ideas about what the context should be. We've talked about conventions, but I think the one that we were talking about, the narrative design that we were talking about, was just being out on Winchester, Virginia's Old Town Mall, you know, yep. And
I think a mall,
so,
whether inside or outside, is the right place.
Yeah, and so in the narrative design, and when I say narrative design, basically we were trading ChatGPT conversations back and forth. We engaged ChatGPT in this discussion, and I ended up actually just giving it a screenshot of what we had drawn here, what I had drawn on the mural board from our last conversation, and asked it to create a narrative that described this. And then once JJ had that in hand, he was off and running. So we were actually sharing these ChatGPT conversations back and forth. And so within that conversation, you know, we basically had JJ being player one of this, you know, system, and he has this jersey and he's walking around in public with it on. And somebody comes up to him and they're like, "Hey, what is this?" And they take a picture of it, of course. And the question is, well, what do they see? You know, what do they see when they take a picture of your QR code? Now, obviously, we're going to take them somewhere, right? That's how QR codes work. Usually they have URLs in them and they're going to go to a thing. I think that the thing that they ought to end up on is a website, right, that happens to be a profile of JJ, right? Because that creates the cleanest sort of connection. And but I expect us maybe to debate that, but I want to sort of plant a flag on that idea. And just to give sort of a visual example of something like that, there's this service called Gravatar. And Gravatar is this thing that it's like WordPress's stuff, but it exists independently of WordPress now. And anybody on the internet can have a Gravatar, and it's based on email address. And the idea is it's this place, and it has your profile picture, and it has your name, and it has a little bit about you, and it has calls to action that are associated with this. And I think if we were to just sort of take what this looks like, I'll let the next one roll up here, right? I think that this is kind of what I would be expecting if I snapped that QR code. I want to land on a page that tells me this is JJ, and JJ is playing game that does not yet have a name, right? And the calls to action are, is JJ a friend or is JJ a foe, right? Or something like that. Do you want to duel him, or do you want to go on a campaign with him, right? So JJ, give me your thoughts. Is this sort of lining up in a way that you imagine that this could work?
No, but I like it. Um,
Well, give me your thoughts.
well, I think what I was thinking is as soon as you scan the thing for the first time, it says, "Welcome, campaigner. Are you ready? Are you ready to meet your mentor?" Right?
Yeah.
And then
All
it
right.
says, tap your phone. Right?
Yeah.
And the two phones tap. Right? And the person who had their QR code scans, it comes up and it says, "Are you ready to mentor?" Right? A new Padawan or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
And they tap it, and then they get a story between the two of them, and they're linked, right?
Yep.
And it's as simple as that. And when when it's over, then the new person is given a screen that says, create your character.
Right. So there's a couple of things. Let's just try to line these things up, right? Because I think you're describing a valid experience that a brand new person would have. But what if the person scanning is already a player in the app, right? So there's just these two different approaches to this that I want to take. The other thing that I want to ask you about is the phone tapping thing, because I don't, when you trot out a technical thing like that, I don't want to dismiss it out of hand, right? So I want to understand it a little bit more, because it's like I've already taken my phone and I've shot a QR code. So my phone already knows who you are, right? By virtue of that. And if I'm presenting a button like make JJ my mentor, boop, right? That's going to give you a confirmation message that says Aaron wants you to be his mentor. Do you accept? And you hit the button, boop. And I think that in near field communication thing is attractive, but everything I know about it tells me that a lot of people are going to have it turned off because it represents a security hole. And that's about the extent of what I know about it. So I'm curious as to how important you feel that interaction is to the broader
No,
experience.
I think what you said is right. So let's say I scan your code. You should get a message, right? That pops
Yeah.
up the app.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've been thinking that the name of it, I like the question, friend or foe. It's very simple, right? Pops up on the screen. Welcome, campaigner, friend or foe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you press that, but I would also I liked your little circle picture because I like knowing who I'm going up against. But in my mind,
Right.
that's a little figure, right? Remember those little figures?
Like an avatar?
Yeah, the avatars you just showed me this past week. I
Yeah.
really like those cartoony avatars. And I think that's part of the fun of the game is what your avatar looks like, right? So they show up and you're like, well,
100%.
that guy is much more advanced than I am.
Yeah. And just to give everybody the benefit of our prior conversations too. So we've been looking at Access VR in general and Caius in particular. We've been looking at Synty Studio assets for a long time. We actually own quite a few of them. And Synty Studios came out with this product that they call Sidekicks. And they're so beautiful, right? And what's great about it too is that it's a modular kit, right? And I've sent them a bunch of questions that they haven't answered yet. But it's amazing because it's also thematic. And once you purchase the different themes, then you can actually mix and match between them. So you could decide that you want the pirate's coat, but you want this crazy helmet that this guy has on, and you can really combine these things to make a character that suits your ideal or plays into a certain environment that you really care about, like whatever the world is that you're playing in. Um, and so let's all right, see Tim's got his hand up. Go for it, Tim.
So the character development thing, I haven't played D&D and things like that, but from a lot of the games I run through and this and that, it says you learn things over time, right? So
You learn
I
things over
do,
time.
you earn,
Earn things. Thank you. Sorry.
right? And so I also feel like I agree with you. There's a branch here. I I know I'm in the world and I'm playing along with others, friend or foe. But I think JJ's point of this initial interaction, this initial engagement, there's a lot of information that we could figure out how to share very subtly. That hey, you've entered into something new. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not just because if I pull it up and show a scan, like, oh, what an arrogant person, they think they're cool. That says, what did you call it, JJ, on the back of the shirt? The barbarians. Oh, it's part of something. I really love the concept of immediately passing on a character to the person, not a formed one, but saying you're basically coming in as a newbie. You don't have any hats, you don't have any coats, you don't have any, but you're just, hey, you're here. Do you want to play or do you want to engage? Do you want to go on this adventure? And then, independent of whether you engage with the other person yet, just like boom, you've entered a new world, you've opened a door. It's that phone call to Neo. You get the call, you get to decide whether you want to answer it, right? So you saw something that looked different, you scanned it. Now you're told, hey, it's not what you think. You are having access to step through a door, right? I'm being figurative here, not literal, but you can become the thing. Do you want to play? Essentially, are you ready? And then if you do, then it kind of introduces you to that game of boom. This is so and so. Do you want to be a friend or a foe? And that person hasn't got a check yet. And if you say friend, it should know smart enough that, hey, there's a newbie here who wants to be mentored, or hey, there's someone who's been in this game for a while, they want to befriend you and invite you to your clan, right? I do like that moment of you have an opportunity to step into a new world.
Yeah. Well, and I want to let me see if I can validate what you're saying here. And oh nope, Warren, go ahead. Warren, go ahead.
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
You're muted, Warren.
Warren, you're on mute. Warren, you're on mute.
Sorry. Thank you. I hate to jump in here, but I do have a 12:30 meeting, so I'm going to have to duck out. And I'm really sorry because I love this conversation and am very intrigued by it. But there's a hesitation in me, and I want to just share it with you because I grew up without video games or Dungeons and Dragons and role playing. My entire boyhood was mostly in sports and being outside and just trying to keep up with school. That said, I've always, maybe you can help me understand this. We don't have time now, but I've always been uncomfortable with the environment of so many role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons that involve, well, Dungeons and Dragons and Wizards and Journeys and mentors and foes and friends, and this sort of haphazard recreation of a medieval hierarchical world. I kind of appreciate the mystery and the magical qualities of it, but it doesn't. I've always been uncomfortable with it. So I'm curious about role-playing games that work in entirely different environments. And my long-term interest really is in immersive history and the way in which role-playing, particularly in a virtual environment, can recreate historical situations. So, include me as we go forth with this discussion, and maybe actually engage in some of these games. But be aware that it's a rather steep learning curve for me because of my entire lack of experience in this kind of role playing that I think probably all emanated from Dungeons and Dragons, and my interest in other environments. It's like asking Broadway to produce musicals in genres like rhythm and blues or bluegrass. And that just doesn't seem to happen. The genre is so fixed in Broadway that alternatives don't seem to be possible. A bluegrass musical, huh? So that's where I am with this. And I love it,
Warren,
and I'm fascinated by it, and I want to be a part of it. But I can't imagine seeing someone with a code on their shirt and a QR code and snapping a photo and then entering in, spontaneously into this world of role-playing games. So,
well, Warren,
you gotta be patient with me.
I will be patient with you, I promise. And I love your honesty. And I just want to sort of meet you where you are with this, because again, like, this is not my world either, right? I was very introverted when I was younger, and these sorts of experiences didn't appeal to me for that reason. And they kind of don't really appeal to me today. It's hard for me to sit down around a table with a bunch of people and we're all going to pretend to be these other characters, and it's hard for me. And there's something interesting about this for me that's different, and I think that a piece of it that we haven't talked about yet today, but we talked a little bit about last week, is the degree to which the AI as a storyteller starts to get in and take on this role of bringing you into the story and helping you to find your character within it. And I think we're going to get into that a little bit today. And so I hope you'll make some time and watch the video that we shoot out after this. But thank you very much for sharing that. I think that I love having a goal of finding somebody who's totally foreign to this and finding a place for them within it. Like, that's, so now there's two of us, right? So that'll be great.
Okay. Yeah, it's like having an invisible barrier, and I'm afraid to go through it because I don't know what life on the other side would be like, and I don't feel like I can act spontaneously and be myself in it. So anyway, I will endeavor to catch up with video. But thank you, all of you. I think this is fantastic. But forgive me, I do have to go. See you.
Take care, brother.
Thank you for coming, Warren.
And JJ, I'll be in touch.
Okay, I love the fact of what you just said, Warren, and I'll see you later.
Okay.
But what the whole purpose of this network is to release that anxiety from the mystery, right? And to give you partners in moving forward in these places. So this is perfect, Warren.
Good.
So
good. I feel like that student in the back of the class that's just terrified of saying anything.
Oh no!
Don't be that.
Yeah.
No,
not in this
Keep coming back.
environment. I'm saying to go
good.
through that curtain, into an imaginary role-playing world.
Yep.
Okay. All right, guys. I'll see you next time.
Thanks,
Really.
Warren.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Aaron, one
Yeah.
thing he was from that conversation that I extracted was, there is definitely a group of people who are not only into this, but would, when they find out, they're going to go crazy, and that's our audience, right? But how do you let them know what it is? And on that first thing, what if, to foreshadow, it's not a button, yes, I want to join this and that, it's a die. So it's like, hey, there's something new, roll the die. And so now it's like, okay, you roll the die and then you find out you're this now. And then out of there, a number comes, a character, you get an idea of what it is. Now you can decide to move forward or not. And if you want to, it's right in line with your thinking. But if you don't, you have enough information to understand the implications of moving forward. But
So
you
I
mentioned
thought
the die in
about
our first conversation. I love that.
that about, do we just give them a character? They're just born, right?
Sure.
And whatever their character looks like, that's what their character looks like, and that character is going to mature, you know?
Right.
Go ahead, Aaron. You
So,
seem like you're
yeah, well, and so I want to step left here for just a second, and I want to talk about this service that Caius put on my radar after I talked with him yesterday. So this is called AI Dungeon, right? And there's a lot that I saw immediately in this product that aligns with what we've been talking about, at least in the terms of the story generation side, right? So when I come in here as a logged out person, right, and I click play, it gives me these options of quick start or create scenario, right? And if I do quick start, loading the adventure, right, it jumps right into it. And it's like, okay, what do you want the setting to be? Right? Zombies, right?
Cyberpunk.
And then
No.
it says, okay, well, what character do you want? Survivor, soldier, or scientist? Right? And you say, okay, scientist. And then enter your character's name. And I went, blah, 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 like that. And so then it starts out and it says, you are blah, 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 a scientist trying to survive in a world filled with infected zombies everywhere. You have a backpack and a solar-powered tablet. You pound your fist on the table, angry that you still haven't found the cure to the infection. You turn to your assistant and, damn it, you slam your palm down on the metal table and sharp echo bouncing off the sterile walls of your underground lab. The LED lighting flickers for a split second before stabilizing. Your assistant, Julia, stands frozen in the doorway, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She looks at you with a combination of concern and mild irritation. Her usually perfect bun has come slightly undone from working late nights alongside you for weeks. The protein markers are just off. You gesture at the glowing monitors, which display a mass of colorful data. We're so close, but it's like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing. And then the options are take a turn, continue, retry, or erase, which is fascinating, right? Now, I set aside all the usability problems with this because there are many, right? But I think that take a turn is an obvious connection to what we're talking about, right? LARPing or role-playing in general. And so when you say take a turn, it says, what do you do? Which I understand is basically how role-playing works, right? The DM says, this is the context. Here's the bad guy. Here's the challenge. Here's the plot point. What do you do? And for all the technical people who might watch this video and both of you guys, right? Like, we know what this is. This is a prompt for AI. That's what it is, right? And so, I like that there are action words here. Do, say, story, see, right? You could give it that much more context. I don't know how technically necessary that is, but it's there, right? And so, like, let's give it one more step forward. So JJ, I think you're the most frequent role player here. What do you do as blah 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 blah?
Brilliantly, I realize that the Smegegala plant sitting in my preserve container, I have no idea, may have the desired effect upon the molecular structure that I am trying to accomplish. Excitedly, I provoke my assistant to clip a leaf from the plant and begin processing the specimen for infusion.
Okay. And we'll send that off and we'll see what it gets back. It says, your breath quickens as the realization strikes. The Smugegula's phosphorescent leaves could be exactly what you need. They contain rare enzymes that might bridge the gap in your research. Your hands shake slightly with adrenaline as you grab your lab scissors, the cold metal biting into your fingers. Julia's eyes narrow suspiciously. You're not suggesting we start experimenting with plant matter now, are you? She speaks with dangerous skepticism, her hand moving instinctively to the small vial of cure derivative solution still hanging at her hip. You don't understand, you insist, cutting a vibrant green leaf from the container. So it didn't just take your words and put them in the story. It wrote story guided by what your activity was that you described in your own words, right? Which is great, right? Like as a example of how we have talked about AI being an engine of story and being a dungeon master and provoking the imagination, it's right here. And so if you would just take this for a moment for what it is as a visual prototype and put it right back in here and stick it where we currently have a space called character generation, right? All the ways that we have talked so far about how this thing engages you in the fleshing out of your character. It's right there, right?
Yeah.
But it's not maybe pick lists. I kind of like Tim's idea of it being a die roll, right? Roll a die. Oh, it's a 6. You're a blank, right? And then it says roll another die. And it goes, okay, and you want X. And you say, okay. And to Tim's point, if you're at all familiar with how this stuff works, you're in. You know what it is. It's a role-playing game. You just rolled a 20-sided die to do a character creation task, and it starts talking with you about who you are. And the action buttons might be something like what this did, like take a turn or agree or disagree, you know, like whatever it is. And there's like a couple of cycles of that where the intent of the AI is just to flesh this out. Who are you? Where are you? And from that, it could probably generate a low poly representation of your face, right? And that, I think, should be the first thing that happens, right? I didn't make that small enough. It doesn't think it's on the screen. I scan your QR code, and this is what I get. That's the first experience that I have. It gives me a place, it gives me a context. And then when I finished with that, that's when it says, okay, you met Captain Bigbeard. Is he a friend or is he a foe? And that's interesting because that feeds right back into the story that I was having. And that creates that thing that I think you've been talking about, JJ, which is that these two people are now going to go on a journey together right now. And they're either going to go on that journey as adversaries or they're going to go on it as compatriots, right? But it's the new player's choice. They got to decide what kind of adventure that they were about to have. And then there's a meaningful, but at this point, probably superficial step where you, JJ, the originator of this, get to accept that, right? Aaron wants to now be your enemy on this journey. Are you down? And you say yes, and we've created a connection, and now there's a new story, and now you're in a loop, and you play in that loop for as long as you want to until you move on to something else, right? Jim's got his hand up.
Sorry.
I think it's a brief experience. I don't think. I think we start at least with a brief experience.
Okay. Tim, what was your thought?
Well, I'm the same thing as JJ, but what I love about this AI generation is if I scan a QR code, the first bit of information I have is the QR code person story, right? So that's input into what the story is. So you've just ran into Captain Big Beard. He's an XYZ blah 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 on a mission to blah do. Do you want to, right? Do you want to participate in this or not, right? Now, and you, do you want to participate in this, yes or no? Maybe it's a roll of the die or something. That's your yes. And you hit it and said, okay, you're this now. Do you want to be a friend or foe? And it doesn't have to be a character that does this. And then to JJ's point, I feel like after you've decided you do want to engage, then it gives you something to do. And so when you go up to the person, you're contributing something to their story. And the AI knows this because it told you, then you need to go do this thing. Not, hey, there's a mentor. Do you want to pay? You have to go up to them now and say something. And now that adds to their story. So now the person who's been playing the game and exists and got scanned, the reason for wearing his coat is his day was interrupted by a new bit of information or a new mystery to solve or a cube that he needed in order to get to the next place, right?
Yeah.
So I love that story engine does it. But if you say no, instead of losing your ability to move forward, you bring in that next thing of what world would you like to enter? And now you can go, well, maybe you're not into barbarians and wizards, but did you know there's this other thing, there's spies and there's this, and now you join one of those tribes and worlds, and now you get access to who else is there and this and that. So there's choice up front and clarity that there's a brief story. You said, hey, you just started a story. Do you want to continue it? Or do you want to make your own? Right? Or do you want to go find another story and be part of a different adventure?
Right. Yeah. I like all of that. Did I lose you guys? No, just
Nope.
Tim.
Nope,
Tim left
we're
out.
all here.
Oh, Tim's back. So JJ,
Yeah.
what's your brain doing right now with this so far?
I've been pretty solid on it. I got lost in the last couple of minutes. Only because anyway, go ahead.
Well, let's do a quick recap. We got 20 minutes left on the clock today. Let's do a quick recap, right?
Okay.
Because there were a couple of nuances also that I want to stop and make sure I understood what Tim was suggesting too. So from the beginning, Aaron and JJ. JJ's already a player in the game. Aaron's brand new. Aaron runs into JJ. Aaron pulls out his phone, snaps the QR code. Step one is get Aaron's brain into the game. And I think what Tim was suggesting was that in part, getting Aaron's brain into the game incorporates JJ's player in a way, right? It's like you've just encountered JJ's character, who we'll call Captain Bigbeard for now. You've just run into Captain Bigbeard, and here is the adventure that he wants you to know, but he needs to know who you are first. And so it's this AI-driven character discovery that's short and sweet, just enough to get you into the game and give you a sense of the mechanics. Then there's the friend or foe decision.
Yep.
Now, I kind of like the idea of the friend or foe choice being my choice as the new player. The game has told me a little bit about who Captain Bigbeard is, and now they've helped me to establish who I am. Now I get to decide, is Captain Bigbeard a friend or a foe? Now, either way, Captain Bigbeard still becomes a connection that I have in the system. And I do think that in making that choice, the next choice belongs to Captain Bigbeard. Do you really want your story to be exposed to this brand new user? And do you want to share in that connection? Yes or no? And if you both agree, then the system moves into this brief shared experience state. What is it? Well, if I've decided you're a foe, then there's a little story that fleshes that out, right? That establishes us as adversaries for a reason. What is that? I don't know. At any point, we should say, this is a bit of a digression. At any point ever, we should get to change whether we think a person is a friend or a foe. It's a character-to-character relationship state, and it changes over time. But that's an aside, right? Whatever we chose. Go ahead, JJ.
Can I just say, I really like the idea of whoever it is that's scanning the QR code, right? To be the person choosing friend or foe, because they're coming into your world, choosing how they're entering your world. And I really like the idea of the person with the QR code choosing how they react. I mean, they can fight, they can escape, I mean, maybe, there's a defensive, there's maybe there are three choices that take us from offensive to defensive to something other. But anyway, I think that's a really great repetitive thing. Yeah.
So they have this brief shared experience, and then it ends. And in ending, there's additional onboarding. The additional onboarding might be, hey, anytime you want to go on a campaign with Captain Bigbeard, here's what you do. Doop, 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 push the button. Now you're on a campaign with Captain Bigbeard. Okay, next. Skip that. Next. Let's flesh your character out. Do you like the one you've created so far? If so, let's fully equip him for a real campaign. If not, let's create a brand new one from scratch, right? Those are your options. And I think that architecturally, and you can check me on this, but I think architecturally, users should get to have as many characters as they want to have. There shouldn't be an upper limit on the number of different ways that you choose to express yourself in the system. I think you should get to have a default, right? Your default is the one that comes up when people scan your QR code. So if you go to a convention and the convention is primarily about pirate role playing, you're going to set your pirate character, your best one, as your default for the duration of that. Your QR code doesn't change, but your default character changes as a consequence of that, right? And that's just how people engage with them. But the connection is user to user, right? So you go on this full character creation journey, and on the other side of that, and this might end up being where they stop. I want to digress a little bit more because I want to talk about story for a second. And JJ, you're very handy with this, and I'm not. So remind me, there are three kinds of story going on, right? One of them is the world story, and one of them is the individual story, but there's a middle one, and I don't ever remember what it is. What's the middle
Oh,
one?
no, it's the immediate story. It's the momentary story between the individuals.
Is it the campaign? Is that a safe
Yes.
word to describe it? Okay.
Yep.
So
And the individual story is Moon Knight might be a prince who was, expatriated from his, who knows what his individual story is.
yeah. So when we're talking about full character creation, I think we're talking about this. There's two things that should be happening. One is we're fleshing out a world, or we're choosing one that's already been pre-designed. And then you're fleshing out who you are in that world. And those two things combined, and the conflicts that exist between them, that's your character, right? And then you take that with you wherever you go. So when we're in a convention hall together and I snap your QR code and it comes up and it says Captain Bigbeard, I'm not just getting temporary access to elements of your individual story. I'm getting elements of a world story as well that goes along with your character as a package. That's what establishes that initial interview sequence that gives me enough substance to be able to participate in the game for that brief shared experience, right? And then campaign stories are bespoke. They happen for different reasons, right? They might happen because 4 players decide on a Friday night that they're going to go on a campaign together. And it could either be a campaign that somebody has pre-made, right? And you buy it for $1, and everybody gets to go on the campaign together. Or the AI just generates it bespoke based on rolling some dice or picking a few characteristics that you want. But these are campaign stories. One last thing to start to build a common vocabulary here. I want to start using the word memory in a very specific way. And that way aligns itself with the way that artificial intelligence large language models are currently operationalized, which is a fancy way of saying this is how they work, right? When I use Claude code, for example, to do programming, I could put these little files anywhere in my file system, claude.md. And in that file are instructions that are relevant to that folder of files. So I have one in my home folder that Claude will read every time I ask it to do something. And I have one in my project folder that Claude will read when I'm working on a project. And I have one in the front end code folder that Claude will access when I'm asking it to work on the front end. So I think that there are memories, a history that get generated in each one of these places. And that this is also part of what goes along for the ride. So when I'm a character out in the big ecosystem that this is, and I go on a campaign, there are memories that I will have had of that campaign that become part of this individual story. So when I go and then I join a completely different campaign with a completely different set of characters and maybe even a completely different world, my memories still go along. The fact that I faced death, the fact that a member of our party died the last time I was journeying somewhere, right? I just think that mechanic is might be what creates all the really interesting differentiation, because you've got somebody who's written a campaign, right? They've got all these ideas about that campaign and a plot that they want the characters to follow. But here comes JJ, and the last time he played, one of his favorite characters ever died. And that can't just go away unless JJ wants it to. And in that case, JJ would create a completely new character to play the campaign, because something like that is so impactful. So I realize this is a really important digression, and we've got 10 minutes left. I want to give you guys a chance to play with this idea and operationalize it yourself.
So I remember, in 7th grade, I was playing a role-playing game called Star Trek, and we played for a year and a half, and our characters ended up in relationships with non-player characters, right? So my character ended up married and all kinds of stuff, right? Well, those characters so well, their actions and their responses even before the DM tells you, right? You can even argue with the DM. They wouldn't do that, right? So this character dies. And I remember us all watching the roll as it was tumbling, and we knew when it landed on that dice that she was dead. And I say she because in my mind, there's so much imagination around that character that made it real. But what was really profound was when it hit the dice, everyone at the table knew. And we all sat back and took a breath, and no one spoke for a minute, right? So yes, these characters can be profound, especially when we're not making it so brief of an experience that I was expecting. I was thinking they were really quick hits, but the AI gives a richness of story that you're going to be able to invest in. And so that's my response to what you were saying.
Yeah. The thing that came to me, I believe it aligns with this, is does it require you, when entering the game, in order to come to these stories and be part of it, does it require, because JJ, you mentioned tapping phones, we talked about security issues, but there's this idea of a physical connection before moving forward. Is that a requirement?
Yeah, I think it
Because
is. And here's the
I have my
reason.
QR.
Well, and here's, role play is being done on Discord, it's being done on websites, it's being done on homes, right? The purpose of this is to get it out of your living room, right? And to get it into the world. And part of what we're seeing is that this young generation is having social challenges, right? They don't have the same places to meet that we did, or the same, social experiences. So we're generating a way to physically get these individuals in relationship with each other. So while I think while Aaron was talking about you could go back and meet with Moon Knight and continue to play with him via distance, I think that that's in the future. I think that people are going to want that to happen. But for me, the initial purpose is putting on a jersey, scanning the jersey, seeing somebody in a mall, making a new friend, and playing games with them.
Okay. That's why I asked, because my mind goes with these storylines is it's the application that's reaching out to you and saying, hey, this just happened, da da da. But the problem is what's motivating me to get up? And then the other thing was, yeah, I might have put my QR thing on, but what if I'm on the phone at the time, but you scan me and I'm busy, I'm not going to get your message. We miss the opportunity to connect.
Well,
You know what I mean? And then so allowing that to happen later makes sense, right? And so I glad what you said, because I'm more into that too. I'd much rather meet people in my area and other areas and then tell these stories to people and actually, man, and this happened and then that happened. You meet somebody years down the road that is in the same thing, but they were on the pirate storyline and you've been on this other one, but you tell about these, build that, right? But I think the first thing you have to do is you have to make sure it works independent of interaction, but then you've got to do things that warrant interaction, right? So in other words, I want people to come into this world, and if they scan and don't get that first touch, there should still be a way for someone to reach out, or there may be a part of the storyline is the first person needs to do something in order to meet that person and get going in, right? And establish that as a critical factor, because the rest of the storyline, all the stuff, the history, the memory, those moments, we want those memory moments, that history, to live in reality and have this imaginary storyline around it that again lands in reality each time there's an event or a moment or a campaign, that there's something you physically do and you're not just passing tokens back and forth. I don't know, I just wanted to bring that up because it's a big part of the structure and the way I think the AI would be guiding your behavior or giving you opportunities to engage, or the ability for people to reach out and start a campaign that is in the real world, not just on the phone, right?
Look, I think, and I think I said this at the very beginning too, like this phrase that JJ used about get out and touch grass. I think that is the differentiator.
Yeah,
Cool.
Because AI Dungeon, is probably one of many ways that AI is being used to do exactly this. And the things that make this different are the jersey, going out, meeting somebody in public. And if the touching of the phones to create that durable connection is part of that, then by all means. At some point, I can imagine reasons for making exceptions being things like accessibility, right? Somebody who really wants to play but can't go out into public for a reason. Those would be reasons to expand it. But in the meantime, I think the really compelling thing is the get out and touch grass aspect of this.
so what
Um,
I also think is important is that we're learning that limitations create marketplaces, right? And part of the reason why I was thinking, I mean, I might want to sit there for a half an hour and each little campaign say continue to the next, and we go on for the next half hour as we eat Chick-fil-A in the middle of the mall, right? However, there are some people that need to have a finite one-time touch, or they're in danger of being sucked in or held there by the person that they're interacting with, right? So the Twitter idea that you're in and you're out, you write a dissertation, right? So I think there's something safe and enjoyable about having these quick hits and moving on. But I also see the reasons for expanding it. Anyway, so here we are at the top of the hour, and we've progressed more and gotten additional ideas and gained greater clarity. Um, do you want to continue this process, Aaron?
Well, I do. I think we ought to shoot for a trilogy. I think we should do what we did last time and talk a little bit about it offline and figure out what that next natural step is. I'll take a couple of days here myself and clean this up, what we've captured today. There were a lot of ideas. Most of them were compatible, and I want to create something that is a little bit more linear that we could look at together. Um, I don't, at this point, speaking as an engineer, we actually have enough to build a prototype. Like it's not, we could probably plumb greater depths of user experience, but there is enough here to make something real. And so I don't know, we might talk about how to go about that in the age of vibe coding as we are. So those are my thoughts.
Do you want to get together again next week or 2 weeks? What are you thinking?
Let's decide what we're going to do, and if we decide we need 2 weeks to achieve it, we'll do it in 2 weeks, and otherwise we'll meet again and iron out some more details in terms of UI and UX. How about that?
It sounds great. This was so much fun. Tim, thank you so much for your contributions. It was good to see everybody here today. Aaron, just tremendous, man. And this is the fun that, you know, is my life as I get to create with you and with others like us. Anyway, everybody have a wonderful day. And I hope you enjoyed the community lunch. Bye.
Send me that video, JJ,
Thanks,
so I can
Aaron.
edit it.
Will do.